Hi everyone. I'm not able to get any good Octagon games at this hour, so instead I'm going to do a commentary today on one of the Premier Steam Hack Invitational games, which was a Octagon tournament held earlier in the week for the regional and national champions all around the world. This is their Twitch channel, twitch.tv/steamhack. Go check it out for all the featured matches that was covered during the game. So before I get into it, I would like to thank SteamHack and especially Dan Diagenio for getting this together and for the video footage, without which I wouldn't be able to commentate on. So this is, I believe, one of the winners bracket matches. This is Vinegary Mink, which is Alex White, UK National Champion 2015, up against Kukuba, who is a regional champion of the Philippines. So yes, halfway across the world, tense battle is taking place between Kate and Nerf. Very standard IDs. This is a really competitive tier 1 level, but I'm going to try to make a commentary that is suitable for all players who are looking towards the competitive scene, whether you are a budding player or an experienced player. I hope I have something to offer for every one of you. So, we start off with Alex's hand, who is playing at Nerf Hub. He has 4 eyes and a 15 minutes, which is pretty good, considering that 15 minutes is a defensive agenda. So he draws in the toe booth. So he has 5 different eyes with which he can play around with. Now, pop-up is by far the best early eyes in the game, so that is definitely something that I will expect him to install. And he places it on R&D because it forces out a parasite from Kate, which is always good. And I think that's a quandary on HQ. HQ defense isn't that important at this point. What he wants is cheap to rest ice in case Kate goes aggressive, and that's pretty good. The most notable thing you might notice is that he installed the 15 minutes naked, which seems crazy, but is totally good. There are many reasons for this. Firstly, if Kate runs it, she gets 0 points because you simply shuffle the 15 minutes back to R&D. If she doesn't run it, you get a free 1 pointer that cannot be stopped by Clot. So it's a win-win situation, and he draws a card from Nerf Hub. So this is actually a very ideal play. Some people might not even attempt to do this, but it's totally worth it. And you see here, he is in no hurry to score 15 minutes at all. Why would you spend 2 clicks and 2 credits, lose your self-tempo to get 1 agenda point? It's not worth it. He's going to leave it on the board and continue building his board state now that he has drawn a very good hand with Hedge Fund and Sweet Sweet. He doesn't really want to play Sweet Sweet because the opponent has only 4 cards, so he goes for the Hedge Fund instead and finds an Astro Script with a draw. Notice that Alex spent his second click to draw a card. He is looking for fast advance combo pieces, especially the Astro Script, to get started. You don't really want to score any agendas other than Astro Script as a fast advance. Maybe a Bill of a Sansan or a Naked Bill to get things going, but most of the time you're looking for an Astro Script. Now let's look at Kate's side. We've been talking about Nerf Hub for a lot. He found an SMC which is pretty good, but a single SMC isn't enough. But with that said, an SMC with a clone chip will get things going because you can then threaten Clot as well as a clone chip to SMC to get the correct breaker for the run with which to steal the fast advance agenda. Now here it installs a Mimic, which is fine because you're expecting Architect. And if you don't install the Mimic from your hand, you have no way to get through to Architect should you face check it. Here he does a dirty laundry run, I believe, on the remote, which will pay off as he denies the 15 minutes from Nerf Hub. But as I said, this doesn't do much because it's basically worth nothing. His hand is okay so far. If I were him, what I would be looking to do right here is to dirty laundry the remote to make sure that it's not a Jackson. I mean, this could backfire if it turns out to be a Jackson. You would lose your 5 credits from dirty laundry. But what you really want to do is to kill any chance of a Jackson so you can play indexing the next turn. Assuming that Alex doesn't play any assets next turn, and indexing here would be very strong for obvious reasons. And now Kukuba has 9 credits, so indexing into another run to steal any Astro Scripts off the top might very well be worth it. He then installs an SMC, which is an okay move. I would play the sure gamble because I'm not seeing any prepaids anytime soon, but same old thing, might just be better. Tough to tell. Alex draws into a pair campaign. He first installs what seems to be a toll booth, places Sweet Sweet, and installs the Astro Script behind the toll booth. Pretty obvious play. you cannot wait for Sensen City Grid to show up, and even if it does, you have to be worried about Clot. So you must take advantage of an early window where the runner cannot has to break their back in order to get to the Astroscript remote. And it might be a Sensen at the end of it. This is one of the reasons why Astrobiotics is so strong. Or rather, any deck with Astroscript and Sensen. You have to check the remote because you can't be sure if it's an Astroscript or a Sensen, and they are both lose-lose situations for the runner. Now, Kukuba at this point draws into a Visage. You don't really want to play a Visage this turn because it won't gain you anything since you already triggered the first time you draw by drawing the Visage. So now I would index right here. To be perfectly honest, this is exactly a good moment to index. Otherwise, I would check the remote. Yeah, both options are pretty good. It's only a matter of where you think the toll booth is. If the toll booth is on R&D, it's actually pretty painful to go in to index it because he probably won't be able to afford 2 runs. He goes for the remote and will be saddened to find a toll booth there. Because here, we quickly realize on both sides, Alex quickly realizes after what Kukaba does here that he does not run Cyber Cypher. And this is going to cause him a lot of problems for the rest of the game. So here, Kukaba deliberates over whether to bring out his Golden Blade, which is his Code Gate Breaker. Golden Blade is incredibly expensive. Every run through Toll Booth costs 7 credits. Yes, 7 credits. In addition, he has to bring out the Golden Blade to begin with, which costs 5 credits between the SMC and the Golden Blade's install costs. 12 credits to get into a server. If you see a Sensen at the end of the server, you're done. Absolutely done. Because you cannot afford to whip out a Clot if you go all the way down to 1 credit with no clone chip. So, Kukaba says, I'm going for it. He's going to sack the SMC for a Golden Blade, take the Toll Booth tax, and pay the money to see the Astroscript. So that's a small little victory for him. In the meantime, that opens a huge opportunity for Alex to do whatever he wants, because when Prepaid Kate is down to 1 or 2 credits, the only thing she has going for her is Stim Hack. Don't forget that Alex can still afford to res any eyes on R&D or HQ even after that run, because he still has 5 credits left, even after resing a Toll Booth, and mostly because his Central Ice is so dirt cheap to res. So, as I mentioned, Golden Blade comes out, he gets the agenda. The Astroscript. So this was a good play. He could have gone for the indexing run, and that would cost him an Astroscript, but I think I would still have done the indexing run really. I think that would have been a better idea, especially if you are not sure what exactly could be in that remote. So here he installs another SMC. It's not of much use because he's only on 1 credit. And in the meantime, Alex takes this opportunity to install lots of assets. Not so much for the shell game, but to capitalize on a window of opportunity. The fact that the runner is so poor means he can abuse this to start getting pack campaigns going. A good runner will suppress the amount of pack campaigns that the corp gets. But with the runner so poor right now, Alex is able to do this. 1 pack campaign, 2 pack campaigns. Are you going to trash them? Going to be very difficult. And now Alex faces an agenda which he's going to score. Pretty obvious choice here. Barring a Stim Hack, he's going to safely get any agenda placed into a Toll Booth remote. So this is a pretty okay play. Bill is not the ideal agenda, but you want to get on the board before Kate sets up. As I've preached a lot of times, when it comes to the late game, the runner is far superior to the corp, with superior money-making mechanisms as well as a greater variety of tools to get through servers. And this is the indexing run that I'm talking about. That should have happened a long time ago. This is not a good time to perform an indexing run because he's only on 2 credits. A wraparound would stop him dead cold, but in this... Oh, sorry, my bad. Alex is down to 0 credits because he scored the bill. So he's able to perform the indexing without any impedance, unless of course Alex reses a pop-up window. So the pop-up window is messes up his plans basically, because now he cannot it's going to be pretty pretty difficult for him to get to do anything. I'm not exactly sure what he sees of the indexing, but I fathom if he saw a Bill or an Astro, he would click for credits and run through it again. A breaking news as well. Any of those easy to steal agendas would trigger another run on R&D, which would make Alex pretty rich, but would also stomp Kookaburra's credits into the ground, which is a huge problem. If Kookaburra goes all the way down to 0 credits, that's a problem, because he has a show gamble in hand that he can never play, because that he has no prepaid voice pads. He needs to click for credits for the rest of this turn and the next, which is going to be a huge problem. The indexing seems to turn up nothing. So, as the corp, of course, you expect the runner to rerun R&D should there be an Astro, Bill, or breaking news within the 5 cards. So, observing Kookaburra here, after performing the indexing, does he run R&D again to fetch the agendas that I mentioned? It seems not, because he's taking some time to think about it. With only 1 credit, what's his next best move? If he isn't going to rerun R&D, I think his next best move would be to click for credits here, as he is doing, and to attempt to show gamble in the near future. So this basically means that there were no agendas on top of R&D. In fact, it's quite iffy that he allowed Alex to draw a Sense and City Grid. What could the other ice be? I mean, what could the other cards be from the indexing? It's quite hard to tell. Probably a lot of money cards, I would guess, and maybe some strong ice like another Toll Booth, or Architect even. So at this point, if you're Alex, you know that there are no agendas coming anytime soon. So he does a very smart thing here. He plays 15 minutes. This would allow him to break the R&D lock, which means that he could potentially draw into the agendas that he wants to see, and more importantly, Kate cannot control what he draws anymore. He can't be sure of... Kate cannot say, okay, there are no agendas on R&D, I'm going to set up my board state. There could very well be an Astro script coming on the top of R&D, and Kate has to deal with that. So 15 minutes, the runner stealing 15 minutes is actually an advantage for the corp. Oddly enough, even though it costs Alex a click to trigger it, it actually allowed him to place the pressure on Kate to rerun R&D at the soonest opportunity. Of course, Kate can't do that right now. Instead, she has to figure out whether she wants to play the show gamble this turn or not. If I were Kate, I would click for credit and play show gamble. Alternatively, click for credit and install prepaid voice pad. Okay, he chooses to install prepaid voice pad here to make use of the Kate recurring credit, and I believe you would click for credit here. Nope, he chooses to draw instead. I'm not sure what he's looking for. I wouldn't have drawn. Yeah, I wouldn't have drawn because credits right now are more important. Anyway, he finds the 15 minutes once again, and so it goes into the remote. The Toll Booth remote, perhaps baiting a run, because this could be an Astro script. Remember that this could very well be an Astro script. If it were an Astro script, I think Alex would have made the exact same play. Maybe he would place the Sense. No, the Sense is in the final remote off the side of the pack campaigns. So, back to Kookaburra, who continues drawing up. He draws a Visage, which gets him to 4 credits, which means he can play the Show Gamble, which he does. And it is at this point that you wonder, HQ is probably agenda free. I could be wrong, but the remote is something that I need to keep in mind. That said, I'm not going to break my back just to get into the Toll Booth remote, go all the way down to 0 credits once again. It's not going to happen. And as such, I'm not going to contest it. I think Kookaburra did the right decision here. Even if we're an Astro, he'll be very hard pressed to run it. He can't tell for sure, so he lets Alex get the 1 pointer in 15 minutes into his score pile. So the corp is up 3-2 right now, and has found a second Sense City Grid. That's pretty good. Okay, and this is the problem with not running Cyber Cypher. If he had a side pointed at the Toll Booth remote, Kookaburra could easily have said, I think it's worth it to run through the remote to see an agenda. It only costs 5 credits, I can make it up with a lucky find that I draw later. And I haven't seen any lucky finds this game yet. He could have done that. Instead, with Gordian Blade, it now costs 7 credits to get through a remote, which is far more taxing. 7 credits brings him down to 2 credits. That's a huge difference. Bringing you down to 2 credits means that you're in click for credit range again. Well, in any case, he does find the lucky find that I was talking about, and I'm sure he'll play it this turn. At this point, Kookaburra doesn't really need to search for anything. He has 2 of his 3 breakers out and an SMC to fetch the last one. There are 2 more dogs left in his deck. He can easily fetch for 1. That's no problem at all. The problem is, actually, yeah, there's no problem at all. He can easily just make us I R&D. Once he can lucky find this turn and R&D, make us I R&D next turn. That's exactly what I would have done. The thing is, once the corp as Astrobiotics is able to force Kate to play the remote game, Kate goes from a winning position to a losing position because she's running a server that may or may not be an agenda that is taxing her resources. Whereas with R&D, you're more or less guaranteed an agenda. I won't say guarantee, but your chances of getting an agenda are there when you make us I or index. And if you don't find an agenda, it means that the corp's not finding their agendas either. So this is why R&D is much more preferential over remotes when it comes to playing prepaid kit versus Astrobiotics. Yeah, in essence. And here, funny enough, he draws the clot. So you have to pitch the clot immediately so that you can fetch it with clone chip, but he decides to discard an Artman instead. This is a fine play because the corp still doesn't know what's in the runner's hand. The corp still has to worry that there might be a clot in the deck, which can be brought out with SMC. So, at this point, Alex double draws with Jackson and installs something in the remote. Again, this places a lot of pressure on the Gordian Blade runner. Do you pay 7 credits to see what's this remote? You can't. You really can't. If I were in Kookaburra's position right now and I have a Gordian Blade on the table, I can't change that to a Sai. The best bet right now will be to play a Maker's Eye on R&D and hope for the best. And why not? Because you already have 1 prepaid voice pad out. So a Maker's Eye would be a good thing to play right now. Maybe you want to deny the Jackson Howard first, but either way, this is a smart move. And you see the ice, it's just 2 credits of tax. I'll take it. Definitely. When I have 17 credits, it only costs 2 credits to get through pop-up windows? Sure. So, paying through, I see 3 cards. Let's see what Kookaburra sees off the top here. Does he get any agendas? Notice that the clot is still in his hand. He could decide to play it from his hand, but I highly doubt so. He'll just keep the threat of clot alive with SMC and clone chip. Until he finds an astrolabe, he's not going to play the clot due to memory issues. 3 cards, no agendas, 1 Cyberdex Royal Suite, so be it. Another reason why you don't prematurely play clot, you have to worry about accessing Cyberdex Royal Suite off the top of R&D. So, since that R&D run turned out by blank, he probably decides that it's time to go for the remote, because if the corp scores a 2-pointer at this point, he gets a match point. That's very dangerous. So I think it is warranted, the run on this remote. But you're about to see how painful it is. He resists an Architect, so that's 2 plus 7 credits to get through. 9 credits, server with a 9 credit tax. This could very well be on R&D, but with R&D you're looking to make very surgical runs, whereas with the remote it's you run every time there's something new installed in it, which is far more dangerous. This time round, he accesses for 9 credits. What does he see? He sees a Sense City Grid. This is the lose-lose situation I was talking about earlier, or rather a win-win for the corp is a lose-lose for the runner. If they don't run it, the corp gets a fast advance avenue in the form of Sense City Grid, which makes it easy. Yeah, which basically makes things easier for them to score out. If they don't run it, if they run it and don't trash it, that's the worst. He had only 5 credits left. He couldn't afford to spend all 5 credits trashing the Sansan, which would open up a huge scoring window for Alex. So he had to leave the Sansan there. That was the worst. He basically wasted 1 click and 9 credits. Sai wouldn't have helped much. Admittedly, it would have saved him only 2 credits, but every single credit counts. You cannot underestimate that fact. Gordian Blade is really causing him a lot of problems, especially without the presence of a data sucker. And you see what he does here. He plays a build, he asks for reactions, he doesn't want to bring out the clot because it's in his hand, and the build gets scored. This is a big loss for the runner. Even if he were able to bring a clock out there, would he be able to run the remote again? No, he can't. Why? Because it costs 9 credits to get through. So this goes back to the idea of denying the remote game. If you're forcing Kate to check your remote every single run, you're winning the game. If you're able to create a remote that is so taxing that it's virtually impossible to keep it in control, you are coming up ahead as Neo of Hub. In that scenario, as I said, if he decided to clog the bill, he wouldn't have been able to afford running through that remote again. So it was a lose-lose for the runner, and the bill would have been scored either way. So, again, it's not the end of the world. It's not an Astro script. But it may as well be, because he's going to allow the Sensen to stick. Really, he can't afford to run the remote short of drawing into his Steam hack, which means that Alex can simply win right off here with a 2-pointer. At this point, you know that as the runner, you have to bring out the clock. And that comes at the expense of an SMC. Kookaburra only has 10 credits, so he cannot afford to use the SMC to bring out a dog before using the clock, which would allow him to spend the SMC instead of just trashing it. So what is there to do? Is it an agenda? I don't think it is, because if it is, Alex would have tried to ice up the remote for the win. So if I were Kate here, I wouldn't run that remote because it certainly doesn't look like an agenda. If it is, you bet that Alex would place one more ice on it. Of course, this could be all mind games. Alright, but since he brought up the clock, Kookaburra is more or less committed to running that remote, and that's the conundrum. If you bring up the clock, you're saying, I believe that's an agenda, I'm going for it. And so he goes for it with a film critic out because he suspects that it might be an NAPD, which would be a very good play, admittedly. Install NAPD in the Sensen remote. Whether they clock or not, yeah, they have to pay 4 credits to steal it, otherwise you are going to score it next turn for the win without circumventing clock completely. So here he goes, he runs through the remote, he goes all the way down to 0 credits just to get through, but he can steal an NAPD if it is an NAPD. But is it? It's a team sponsorship! Gotcha! I think that was a pretty hilarious moment. If I'm not wrong, Kate actually did see the team sponsorship from HQ earlier on during one of my HQ runs and decided not to trash it. And that turned out to be the team sponsorship that went in the remote. So joke's on you for not trashing the team sponsorship when you could, because now it turned out to be remote bait. And this goes back to my point earlier. If you manage to remote bait the runner this many times, costing them 9 credits each time they run through, you are doing a very good job as the core. As you can see, at this point Kate is on a severe back foot. He has 0 credits to this name and makes this play possible. Exploiting this scoring window, what Alex does is to fast track an NAPD and place it into his remote. One of the few times he would fast track an NAPD over an Astro script. The totally correct play. Very wise of Alex who has spotted it this late in the tournament. You have to figure that he's very worn out at this point. But this is a very good play, because he knows that it's very difficult for the runner to steal the NAPD. Even with film critic out, that is true. He has film critic out. Still, he has to get through the entire remote. And Alex is saying, with 0 credits, you cannot do that in 4 clicks. But Kookaburra does draw into his Steam hack, and that could change things. It costs him exactly 9 credits to get into the remote, and Steam hack gives exactly 9 credits. So, what kind of ice would stop Kookaburra at this point? Pop-up wouldn't stop him because Kookaburra has 1 extra credit to get through the remote, and again, he can offload the NAPD onto the film critic. That is definitely a possible line of play. And with 2 clicks left, Kookaburra has a couple of choices. If I were him, what I would do now is to click for credit and Steam hack into the remote. But instead, he goes straight for the Steam hack. And we'll see what the outermost piece of ice is. Can you guess? Steam hack into a wraparound. And that ends the game right there, because he needs to spend 9 credits on the remote. On Architect plus Toll Booth, he does not have any money for a dog, or a lady rather. And this goes back to the earlier point. Earlier when he clotted, he could have rescued a dog with the SMC. But he chose not to, because he was low on credits. and this comes back to bite him in the butt when he realizes that he's gear checked out of the remote. He had the dog for the longest time. The SMC was sitting on the table all game, but he just couldn't find the opportunity to install the dog, which you so badly need against NBN. And yeah, that's something that he cannot handle. So he does the next best thing, which I didn't spot. This is a very smart play. I wouldn't have done this play. He uses the Steampack money to bring out a Parasite, which allows him to Parasite one of the pop-ups on R&D. This will allow him to go in for a Maker's Run, Hail Mary Maker's Run on R&D. He knows that it's an NAP in the remote. They both know it. And he knows he's not getting through this run. So he's going for his next best line of play, which is to Maker's Eye and hope to find 5 points in one run. It's a long shot. It's doable. Of course, none of these points can be NAPDs. If you offload anything on Film Critic, you won't have the time to then liberate it onto your score area for the win. He really has to have a perfect run to see breaking news, Astroscript, or something to that effect. It's almost certainly not going to happen, but at least he's making the ideal line of play here. So props to him for that. But at this point, you notice that the game is heavily tilted in the favor of the Corp. There's no way that Kate is going to win, bar extreme luck. So it really all goes back to Gordian Blade. I can't stress this enough. And the fact that he made so many dead runs on the remote. He made 2 dead runs. Once to see a Sense City Grid, another time to see a team sponsorship. Those could have been Maker's Eyes runs instead. Those could have been times where he set up his board state instead. Instead, he's forced to contest a remote he's not good at breaking, and that basically cost him the game. Never advanced shenanigans are so powerful, especially in NBN where you threaten the Astroscript. Even though Alex didn't score a single Astroscript this game, it didn't matter. The very matter of the fact is the threat of Astro Train itself prompts many runners to make suboptimal decisions such as running into 9 text remotes, which you really shouldn't be doing. The mind games didn't pay off for Kukaba in this game, and despite a valiant Maker's Eye effort, I think he only saw a single breaking news out of the 3 cards out of it, and this allowed Alex to triple advance the NAPD in the remote for the win. With 2 pack campaigns out, he can gain enough credits to do so the next turn. And even then, he has shipment in hand. So yeah, so much for Clot. It can only do so much if you can actually access the agendas that you are trying to clot. A Sansan behind a toll booth is one of the worst things you can deal with, and sometimes you just don't even have enough money to do that, even as prepaid Kate. Moral story, play Cyber Cypher, and be smart with your runs. I think this is a very important reason why R&D pressure is so important. As prepaid Kate, you want to be constantly locking R&D. It's pretty hard to lock R&D against NBN, but at least force them to use fast tracks or Jackson Howards to find agendas and maximize the number of central accesses you get, because once you're forced to play the remote game, it's very difficult to come back, especially if it's this taxing. So that was a good game, and I won't spoil the results of the final of the entire invitational. If you want to check it out, again, do so at the Twitch channel, the official Twitch channel. This is the link. I don't think I'll be doing any more commentaries unless you guys have any suggestions on good games to commentate. In the meantime, thanks for watching and happy net running. I hope this was a good commentary. See you all around.